hide these. All right, so let's get started with a little bit of some code reading. So Caroline, could you kick us off? Could you do lines 1 and 2?
Okay, on line 1, the doc type HTML element opening tag. I'm sorry, I forgot how to read that one.
On line 1, there is a doc type declaration HTML.
Yes, on line 1, there's a doc type declaration in HTML, and on line 2, there's an opening HTML tag.
Perfect. Noah, could you do 3 and 4? And let me know if you like any examples.
Here we have on line 3, we have a head tag,
Opening head tag.
opening head tag,
Uh-huh.
and line 4, we have an opening title tag
Uh-huh.
inside the head scope, and has a description, HTML intro, the name of the web page. So on the browser we can see it.
Yeah, you could just say text content.
Yeah, and the closing tag title.
Perfect. Yep. Thank you. Trey, are you around? All right, we'll jump to Rukaya. Rukaya, could you read lines 5 and 6, please?
On line 5, there's the closing head tag. On line 6, we have the opening body tag.
Perfect. Thank you. Caroline, could you do 7 through 9?
Okay, on line 7, there's an image self-closing tag, element tag. On line 8, there's an alt attribute with a string named Pikachu. On line 9, there's an src, and is that also an attribute?
Yes.
An attribute with the link or the string. And a self-closing.
Perfect. Thank you. Noah, could you do line 10, please?
The opening tag heading to with the text Pikachu, and closing tag of the closing tag of the heading. On line 11, it is the opening tag for the paragraph, and has some sort of cover, like some special.
Do you know what those are called with the ampersand? We just learned about them.
Yeah, I was reading the special character.
Yep. What is it specifically referred to as?
So they refer to so instead of the I don't know, the HTML cannot read the ampersand, so it has, well, like any special symbol. So
That's what they are. What are they called?
Special entity and escape character.
So HTML entities. That's what they're referred to as. So yes, on line 11, there's an opening P tag with some text content, including HTML entities, and then a closing P tag.
So when you put at quote, well, what's gonna be the output?
At quote, what? So whenever you do an ampersand, then you're creating the HTML entity, and then you're just telling it what special character you're wanting to render, essentially.
So this one is a copy, is putting the copyright.
The copyright symbol. Yep, you can see that when I hover over it, it's even showing the little C right there.
Oh, so we
The
can see
reg, you can see it's also showing me. Yeah, I've actually never even noticed that. I just hovered over it right now, and then I saw it.
Yeah, me too. It's like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, another one's common is a space, so you can see there's like an empty space. So, yeah.
So it's Unicode character. So
Awesome. Trey, are you around?
Yeah. Yes, I'm sorry. I'm back.
No worries. Can you tell me where would I put non-visible content about our HTML document?
In the head.
In the head. Yep, exactly. So anything that goes inside of that head is all going to be content that is not going to be visible on the page. Whereas in Rukaya, where would I want to put visible content in the page?
In the body element.
In the body, yeah. So in between those opening and closing body tags, that's where I'm going to put all of our visible content. Caroline, where do the head and the body tags go in a valid HTML document?
They belong, the header tag belong in the title tag.
not in the title
Oh,
tag, that's,
I'm sorry, they belong,
Document.
first there is the head tag and then there's the body tag
Mhm.
and,
What
it-
tags are both of those in?
oh, they are in the main.
It's not a main tag. Tag is it?
The body tag,
What is the head
HTML
parent? The HTML tag.
where did I get the main tag from?
I don't know. There is a main
There
tag.
is, right?
Yeah, but
Oh,
you use the main tag inside the body tag
Oh.
to say that that'll be your main content. But the actual body and the head are inside of the HTML tag. Awesome.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Noah, what is the purpose of a doc type declaration?
From the name, is it like the type of document?
Yeah, it's telling the browser what type of document this is gonna be, so it knows what to render. Is this gonna be an HTML document? Is this gonna be an XML document? Just what kind of document am I gonna be rendering? Trey, can you give me 5 examples of HTML element types?
So on the element types, I used head, link, style, meta, title, and body.
Yep, those work. I would say, yep, those are all valid tags. We also have, you know, an easy one is all the H tags, H1, H2, H3, H4, H5. We have lots of different ones. We have the image tag, like we use the image tag. We have the P tags for text content, there's span tags. So there's a whole lot. Yep, those would all be considered valid HTML elements. Rukaya, what is the purpose of attributes?
So they provide additional information and functionality.
Yeah, exactly. So they can either provide additional information about an element, or they can also be used to adjust the functionality of an element, like our image. I want the image to change what image it is showing. Well, that source attribute changes the functionality of what the image actually renders. Whereas in sometimes I just want to maybe add some additional content. So there's other attributes and whatnot as well. Caroline, can you give me an example of an HTML entity?
So that would be, for example, the and symbol
Mhm.
and the quote, the Unicode that we just used in the exercise.
Mm-hmm. So, what 2 specific ones did we use?
Copy.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So we have a little copyright symbol and that little trademark symbol. Mm-hmm. So there's lots of different examples. So those are 2 that we use. You could even do like a space. But yeah, pretty much any special character can probably be found as a HTML entity. Awesome. We'll talk about a few things, but before I do, did anyone have any initial questions? Okay.
So the entity is also called the escape character. It's just, I mean, they're the same thing, right?
Yes.
Okay.
The HTML, I think the action or the action of like showing the special character is called the escaping the character. And then I think like the whole
Oh.
character itself is referred to as an HTML entity.
Is it? So it's an ASCII code, the symbol you cannot see. So remember, like if you put something in the ASCII code,
Mhm.
when output it, you cannot see it. This is called the escape. Okay.
Mhm.
Oh.
Caroline?
I was wondering about the attributes. How many attributes is it recommended to usually have, or is it just depending on what we're doing?
It depends. Like with an image, right? Well, if an image, it always needs a source attribute and it always needs an alt attribute. So it always gonna need those 2. Something like an H2, well, an H2, I only need to give an attribute if I want to give it an attribute. So maybe I want the H2 to have an ID. Well, then I'll go give it an ID. Maybe I want the H2 to have a class. Well, then I'll go give it some classes. Other than that, I can't think of any other attributes that I'd really give the H2. But when we get to forms, we have those inputs. Well, those inputs, they have other attributes because I need to change what type of input. Do I want this to be an email input? Do I want this to be a password input? So then those have specific. So it depends on the specific element that you're using and how you're trying to use it.
But
So
also, The attributes, they have like different functionalities, like the class and the ID. Well, yes, this is later in this. Okay, but.
Yeah, but class and
For
ID don't necessarily, like, the only functionality is that you can only have one ID. You could have many classes, but those are only really for CSS purposes as a way for us to like style it. There's nothing functional that really comes from giving something. Kind of, but yes,
Okay.
if you think about it, not really, yeah. Trey?
Does it matter if the attribute goes before or after?
No, it does not matter. Sometimes, let's see if it'll get mad at us. No, this one doesn't care. Sometimes you may, so we use a tool called ESLint. So I'm not sure if you've ever gone to commit your code and you see in your terminal, it's like running all these different tests and it's like checking your files. So we have a linter that's being ran on your files and it's checking for just errors and different conventions and whatnot. So sometimes some companies have like a rule that like make it so that you put your attributes in alphabetical order, but there's no functional purpose or reason why one needs to come before the other. It's just a matter of kind of structuring your code and readability.
Good question, Trey. Thank you.
Any other questions before I talk about some other stuff? Okay, so then I think that I already opened it up. I did. Okay, so as we already talked about the head is reserved for just content about the page. It's not going to be content that's actually visible on the page. It's just going to be content about the page. So the main thing that goes inside of here is the title. So this title tag is what actually shows in the browser tab. So you can see like whenever you're in Chrome or some sort of a browser and it has a little description of what tab you're on, that's what the title is saying. That's just showing the little description. So you can see I have my little HTML intro. I do not have a favicon image right now, but you see these little images that are next to the title. If I had a favicon image, that would also go inside of the head and it would just appear right here. But the head is just information about the actual page. The main other stuff that go inside of here is like metadata information. So for instance, like if you were to Google me and then you see my website and then it has this little description. My name's Sean Cost. I'm a front-end developer. This description would be from a meta tag that would be inside of my head. And then I would essentially have that little text and then that's what's actually appearing on Google. So the main stuff that goes into your head are just going to be meta tags and just any other miscellaneous information. Once we start learning about CSS, then we'll also put our CSS style tags inside of there as well to load them in. The body is for all visible information. So you can see if we go back to our web page, I have that image of Pikachu. I have some text down here. This is all stuff that I actually want to be visible on the page. So that is where the body goes. So anytime I ever want to add any new text, I'll go on our body and then I'll put our text there. So body for anything visible, head for anything non-visible. When we take a look at our tree, we can see that the head goes before the body, right? Well, let's say that I did this. Let's say that I moved my head after the body. So now, usually the head should be going before the body. Now I'm trying to move the head below the body. We can already tell something's probably a little bit funky. So let's go ahead and let's check it out. We look at our web page. Everything looks the same. Let's take a look at our inspector though. You see my head is all the way back up at the top. But I put my head down here. So I put my head down here, but my head is up here. However, what's missing from my head?
Any of the contents.
What was inside of my head?
The title.
The title. You can see right here, I had a title on 11, but my title's gone. Well, where did it go? It's in the body. It's right here. So the browser tries to help us. It found that we made a mistake. The browser knows how HTML markup was supposed to go. And so the way that the browser is built was, I know that the head should go before the body. So the browser went and fixed it for us and it moved the head before the body. However, with this title tag, it didn't know. It doesn't necessarily know that it was supposed to be associated with the head, so it didn't really know where to move it. It was down here, which kind of associates it kind of with the body, because it was after the body, even though it had inside of the head. So the browser didn't really know what to do with it, so then it added it to the body. So just important to show that sometimes when it comes to these HTML mistakes, the browser will try to help us, and it will try to fix it. But we want to be the ones telling the browser what to do. We don't want to rely on the browser trying to fix our mistakes for us. We want to be the ones telling the browser specifically how these things should be rendering. So just keep in mind that although the browser may have your back sometimes and it may fix some things for you, we still want to be the ones in control. Okay, if we were to comment out this doc type declaration, you can also see that it completely works. It's fine. It's not necessarily needed. The doc type declarations used to look a whole lot differently back in the old days. Old HTML doc type declaration. Let's find it. See if they have any old examples. Yeah, so something like this. So this is what HTML doc type declarations used to look like. So you used to have to include this up at the top, and you would include a specific link to like the specific HTML version spec that your browser was going to be using. Nowadays, with HTML5, it's just kind of like the standard de facto one, so you don't have to necessarily include these. So it's more so for like historical purposes at this point, that you kind of include like that doc type declaration. If you technically don't have it, it still will be fine because the browser will default to HTML. We'll still usually just include it anyway, just to make sure that it's good across the board. Yeah, this is what it essentially used to be. So it's very, very, very nice nowadays not having to worry about this. And we can just kind of do that exclamation thing and get it going. A couple other things. So closing tags. So you'll see snippets online of closing tags. Sometimes they'll have the slash. Sometimes they won't have the slash. So you can see I have the slash right now. And we'll go and we'll take a look on the page. You can see it works. If I get rid of the slash, you can see it also works. So you may see snippets of both online. And as far as HTML is concerned, totally fine. You can have the slash, you can not have the slash. If I remember correctly, I think the reasoning is in XML, there's a difference. That when you were writing in XML, you specifically needed to mark something as a self-closing tag. So that's where the slashes were like were important. But as far as HTML is concerned, it's not needed. You will eventually learn React, and once you get to React, it will be necessary to include those self-closing tags. You'll kind of learn about why once you get over there. But as far as just plain old HTML is concerned, anytime I ever have a self-closing tag, you can include the slash or you can drop it. It doesn't matter. Okay.
So what if I don't include the slash and I create another closing image tag? Would that make a difference?
So if I don't include the slash and then you try to do like this.
No. Just have like a proper closing image tag, like how we have a closing body tag.
Mm-hmm.
End tag.
Oh, it's not gonna, so if I do, get rid of this. So you can see there's already gonna be a syntax error. It's kind of funky. Let's see our page. So this is still working, rendering. So the browser looks like it fixed it for us. So I have this, and then I tried adding a self-closing one. Let me add back our doc type. You can see that the browser just completely removed my self-closing tag completely. So browser fixed it. Again, not something we would want to rely on, but yeah, images will never actually have a full-on closing tag. They'll always be self-closing. Okay, let me reset here. What are these errors about? Let me fix that. Make sure that it's covered all the changes.
Remove the body tag. I think that was the error.
Oh, okay. There we go. Sweet. All right. So another thing I'll talk about, the alt tag, the alt attribute. So the alt attribute has two purposes. One is, let's say my link is broken. So let me just add a random URL. So let me just break the URL. And now let's go back to our web page, and we can see it says text right here. You see it shows this little broken picture emoji, and it says Pikachu. So one of the purposes of the alt attribute is so that in case our images are not able to render properly, we can still show some sort of a description of what was supposed to be there. You know, images are usually kind of like secondary content. They're not usually like the main content. They're there to like supplement the rest of the content on the page. So we can just include a little description. So I can say a photo of Pikachu. And now I know that if my image for some reason isn't able to load or render, I can still show some text so to tell my users what was supposed to be there. So that way they still have an idea of some photo that was supposed to be there. So that's one use case of the alt attribute, is that in case our images aren't able to render. The second, and I would say the more important, is for accessibility. So our job as front-end developers is not only to make websites, but to make websites for everyone. And that includes people with disabilities or special needs. So someone, let's say someone is blind and someone is trying to use our website. Well, they aren't able to see the image, obviously. So what this alt tag actually does is it communicates with the screen reader. So when people have disabilities, they'll use a software called a screen reader, and that screen reader will actually go through and it'll read out the page content to them. So that way they're able to still interact with the web pages. So if someone was using a screen reader and then they got down to this image, it would actually read out the alt text. So then it would get there and then it would say image of Pikachu or whatever the alt text actually is. So I would say that's kind of like the main purpose of the alt attribute, is us essentially telling screen readers what to read out once those screen readers get to that content on the page. So that way, anyone that uses any sort of screen reading or just any sort of those softwares, they can still get an idea of what was supposed to be there. Any questions about that? Okay, very, very, very important. Make sure you always include that alt attribute. Sometimes you may have an image that is purely decorative. It has no meaning. You know, sometimes like you maybe even want, like if you ever go to a website and like there's even like a cool little like line or something, even if you just add like an image to that to like create that design. Well, in that case, you don't probably have a description. You would just put an empty alt attribute. And that will tell the screen reading software, and that'll tell the browser that it's a decorative image, and it won't actually read out the content to the screen reader. But you always need to make sure you always include some sort of an alt attribute. If it's purely a decorative image, just put an empty string. Otherwise, if it is an actual image, put some sort of a description. Yeah.
Just a question, so here for the image link, so we need to put the complete link for the image, right?
This is the absolute URL. Yeah, later on, we're gonna have an exercise that'll teach you the difference between an absolute URL and a relative URL. You can either load an image local to your file path.
Yeah, that would be.
Yeah, so we'll cover that in a few exercises.
Okay.
Any other questions about this? Okay, and then last but not least, we have these HTML entities. So let me copy this. Let me copy this. I just want you. A little zoom here in my way. Okay, let me just copy this then. Place this. Okay, so let me try to just put in the symbols themselves without an HTML entity. And now let me go ahead and let's go look at our website. Hello. There we go. And we can see it works. They load just fine, even though I didn't include an HTML entity. So sometimes they may work, but I cannot guarantee. This is one of those things where I'm kind of relying on the browser. I'm like praying to the browser that, hey, you know, I hope you're able to actually render these properly and show them. But I also cannot guarantee that every single browser is going to behave in a certain way. Chrome is going to handle things different than Firefox. Firefox is going to handle things different than Safari, you know, Edge and whatnot. So the only way for me to do like cross-platform support to make sure that every single browser renders these things in the exact same way is via those HTML entities. So although it may work even without the HTML entities, we want to make sure that we still include those HTML entities just so that regardless of whatever device, whatever browser the user is using, it'll still always get rendered in the exact same way. Any questions about that? All right, any final questions about HTML intro before we move on? I'm gonna stop the recording then.